Hi, my name's JT, as you'll see from my channel, JTJ 2013. I guess I'm a brand new YouTuber, and a begrudging one at that. So the reason why I'm here today, I guess for one part of it is I'm just extremely bored. It's a Saturday. I'm in a master's program and I should be writing a paper right now. However, I'm procrastinating because I don't feel like it. So I figured I would entertain myself by turning on my camera and running my mouth for a little bit about things that are important to me. So I have absolutely no idea how far this is going to go, if this will be my only video, if I'll ever upload this video, or if it's just the start of something that I'll have a little bit of fun with. Topics that come to mind will be obvious interests of mine. So for those of you who know me, which would be all of the one person who's watched a video for me before, you would know that I'm interested in martial arts, i.e. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA. I've competed in each of them, actually. Not at a high level at all, but I have competed. And I also love fantasy books. I'm a fantasy book nerd, unashamedly. So I love to talk about those type of things. And I have one series in particular that I really want to spend some time talking about, because I feel like it's not really been tapped by many people within the book community. I haven't heard that many reviews on it, and of the reviews that I've heard, and I've been kind of sorely disappointed with some of the people who haven't really gone into the plot and haven't done the characters or the author justice. So I'll talk a little bit about that. That series would be the Cradle series by Wight, an absolutely outstanding series. And then other things that interest me would be Latin dancing or Afro-Latin dancing. My favorite dance is this dance called Brazilian Zouk. My second favorite is a dance called Urban Kids. And I guess I'll spend some time talking about that as time goes on. So those are my hobbies, and those are the things that I'm interested in. I also love Dragon Ball. I have to put that out there. The best anime ever, and really the only anime I've ever really paid attention to. So there may be a little bit of content about that and just giving my thoughts. However, that is a very saturated market, so I don't necessarily see there much value in me trying to really speak about that, but I'll do what is desired, I guess. So I guess I should just go into the topic that's at the forefront of my mind, which would be the Cradle series by Will Wight. I'm sorry, Mr. Wight. This series is, I guess I would make the analogy, and others have as well, but this series is very much like Dragon Ball in a fantasy book series. And me saying that may leave a potential reader uninspired, because they feel as though they're going to just see this progression series and it's going to be bored, trite, cliche, all those things that people want to make sure that they avoid when they're looking for something new. And to a certain extent, there's a lot here that you have seen before, but the way that it's done, the characters that Will Wight has created, and the way that the progression happens is absolutely amazing. So I'll start off with the first book, which was Unsold. It came out in June of 2016. And like many books, specifically at the beginning of the series, then it's somewhat of a slow build. You don't necessarily resonate with the character directly off. The main character's name is Wight Linden. Linden is born into this world where there's a magic system, like there are in most fantasy books. There's a magic system. The magic is called Madra. There's something that's like an inner force that's just about every person in the world has a specific amount of, and they have affinity towards it. In Linden's particular tribe or village, whatever you call it, clan, that's what it is. In his specific clan, then people have affinities towards different uses of mantra. Off the top of my head, I want to say there's enforcer, there's like a builder, there's like some type of protector, there's some type of the artists are more so called soulsmiths, or maybe those are the builders, right? So don't quote me on the specific terms. However, just about every kid that Linden's ever known and that the clan has heard of in recent history has some type of affinity. And when Linden gets tested, I want to say at 6 for the first time, then he shows zero affinity for any of them. and this goes on to continue for the next couple of years as he tests. So he is branded as unsold, and his clan, then people get badges that are kind of indicative of their their rank, so to speak, and their progression along their journey in this magic system. And they also have the type of affinity or type of skill set that they are on the path of, let's say, and that is usually put on top of their badge, right? Like this logo, so to speak. This logo, I don't know what the hell this shirt is, and I do see these deodorant strains, so or deodorant smears, so don't judge me. But Lyndon has nothing, so he has a blank wooden badge, and he's called Unsold, and that's the start of this book series. And I guess to pause right there, I would insert that Will Wight does an absolutely amazing job of foreshadowing. And I've read, I don't know how many books. Like I said, I'm a fantasy book nerd, so I haven't read everything, but I've read the Wheel of Time series. I have read just about everything Abercrombie's made with the First Law series. I've read Red Rising. I've done some Ken Follett. The Century Trilogy is absolutely amazing. Kingsbridge was just as good. What else comes to mind? I don't know. I've dabbled a little bit in the Mitch Rapp era with Kyle Mills, and I want to say Vince Flynn was the original author before he passed away, off the top of my head. Brandon Sanderson, I'm a big fan of his, so I've read all of Mistborn. I've read all of the Stormlight Archive to date. I haven't read everything in Cosmere, but I'm pretty well versed in the world of fantasy and those type of books. I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, I believe, and yeah, so quite a bit of material to compare this to. And what I'll say is, as far as foreshadowing is concerned, he did such a good job that as the series progressed, then I found myself wanting to go back and reread based off of the foreshadowing, the foreshadowing that he did, right? So he planted seeds up in the beginning of the book that gave an extreme amount of payoff later on, and I thought it was expertly done. In fact, once I finished I didn't finish the series. Waybound hasn't come out yet, and it's expected to come out in 2023. Hopefully, first quarter 2023, please. But as soon as I finished Waybound, I tried to give it a day or two and go on to the next book series that I planned on reading. And I tried, and it was like trying to get over a relationship that just took so much out of me. As a matter of fact, I give this analogy, but I remember being a younger person, and I would try and approach women, and they give me the "it's not you, it's me," like I'm just not emotionally available. I just got out of a relationship, and it didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, hey, I'm here. You say I'm attractive. You say that you are interested in doing this. You want this relationship at some point. However, you're not in a place where you're emotionally available. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why you would allow somebody from your past to potentially bar you from making strides towards your future. And then I started reading a lot, and I got it. I finished the series, and I'd fall in love with characters, and I'd be so immersed in the world. And then I'd finish it, and I'd try and go on to something else. And before you know it, I'm like, yeah, I know this book is good. I know the series is good. The author is highly recommended, and I'm almost positive it's going to be great. But I cannot bring myself to care at all about any of this, based off of the fact that I was still stuck in the past, and I was still emotionally tethered to everything that just happened. So, with that being said, ladies, I get it. I understand, and you can thank fantasy books for my understanding of what you go through with the breakups. That being said, when I finished the series up through Dragar, which is the 11th book, then I ended up rereading it immediately, and it's the first time I've ever done that. I've been into fantasy books for probably about the last 7 years or so, and yes, the first and only time I've gone back and reread the entire series. And 11 books is quite a commitment. They're not super long, but still, 11 books over the course of a month, and then 11 more over the course of the next month is a lot. So I digress as I continue on with the plot of Unsold. Then Lyndon is, as I mentioned, he is not skilled with Madra, the magic system, and there's something in his life that happens. And I mean, I guess at this point I can't talk about spoilers. Anyone who's watching this video has probably heard of the series, and if you haven't heard of the series, then I mean, go look it up. And if you care about spoilers, and I suppose you should go read the book and then maybe come back and watch a video. I'm not sure if people care enough to do that. However, I will say that there is something where like a very, very high power individual from this world that has ascended beyond, because that's what you're supposed to do once you reach a certain level of power, and you'll get more into that as the series goes on. But someone who's ascended based off of their power level has returned to their world, which is called Cradle, and they have decided that they want to not just terrorize, but basically rule within that world, and that is prohibited by this, I would say, this international police force, so to speak. We'll call them that, called the Abaddon. They are supposed to keep order throughout the entire universe. So this very, very powerful figure comes back and just starts to terrorize, and while terrorizing and asserting their dominance, then they kill quite a few people in Wight Lyndon's clan, his mother included. And there happened to be an Abaddon judge by the name of Serial, who's kind of like a really, really high person in the international law enforcement area. She just happened to be there based off of, trying to sort through some thoughts and trying to figure out her next steps, particularly looking for this character named Adriel. But she happened to be there, and she saw what was happening. She found out about what did they call it? I don't know, just the interruption. Spatial violation, that's what it's called, the spatial violation. So she was there, she allowed everything to play out, and then she just reversed it. Within the spatial violation, Lyndon dies. He has absolutely no power. He knows he has no chance, but he goes and decides to try and attack the powerful figure with an empty palm technique to try and disrupt his Madra system. And he gets like swatted like a fly. His legs are one way, his torso is the other. He thinks he's dreaming, and then he passes. So Serial revives him, and she talks to him. She's inspired by or encouraged by his courage that he would attack somebody he absolutely had no chance of defeating. And she restores his life, and then she runs a simulation, so to speak, of his life and what it would be. And she says that he'll live a relatively healthy, and he'll live a good life. He'll live to somewhat of a, I guess, not old age, but probably 50s or so, which, given that world and his clan, is probably good. He'll achieve something in his life relative to the status of his clan, if that makes sense. But then in about 30 years, then there's going to be something called a Dread God attack, and it's just going to destroy his entire village, clan, like the entire valley where he lives. He lives in a place called Sacred Valley, and all of it's going to be destroyed, and there's nothing anyone that lives there is going to be able to do about it. It's going to just kind of happen in like a blink of an eye, so to speak. And Lyndon's like, well, can I do anything to stop this from occurring? And she brings him around, and she shows him several people within the world that are powerful enough within the Madra system in order to prevent it. So, Lyndon's really, really desperate about, okay, well, how can I get to some of these people? And she's like, you can't, but she does leave him somewhat of a way, not a way out, but somewhat of, I guess, a modicum of hope, where she says, hey, there's this girl named Yaren Aurelius, and not Yaren Aurelius, Yaren, she wasn't Aurelius yet, my apologies, but Yaren, he shows her in a vision. She's being attacked by a bunch of students, and she's basically like, if you can find her, she can get you out of Sacred Valley, and that's where your journey basically begins. So next we get into Lyndon conniving his way into this Heaven's Glory school via tournament. He basically cheats his way to be accepted by school and take somebody else who was much better positioned to be accepted as a student in the Sacred Valley. Then the schools are very prestigious, and it's very difficult to gain access and entry, and they kind of rule the valley. Then once he gets access to the school, then he cheats his way through this indoctrinating trial, so to speak, where he climbs this mountain. So he just cheats. And eventually he's there at the school for, I want to say, 1 or 2 nights, maybe, not even. And he ends up tracking Yaren down. Yaren is being attacked by the school because her master was this very powerful individual named Sage. His name was Sage Adama. And he was there in Sacred Valley training in the labyrinth, which is in Sacred Valley. And the labyrinth of Sacred Valley is very important, very critical to the storyline, and you learn much more about that as the books progress. Specifically, I would say the last 3 books or so that have been written, they really touch on Sacred Valley, and you understand a lot more, and a lot more makes sense. But Adama was there. He was being poisoned by the school because he wouldn't share his treasures, and to be honest, they're a bunch of sycophants anyway. So the self-aggrandizing sycophants end up poisoning him and murdering him. And Yaren, his apprentice, then she is left to fend for herself, and she's so good that she's able to defeat multiple enemies that they send after her time and time again, but they start to turn up the pressure, and Lyndon ends up meeting up with her. So the main point of the book is they end up meeting up. Lyndon tries to gain Yaren's trust by making sure that he's supportive of her and gives her a heads up on the attacks that are coming. She doesn't trust him, but she makes him swear an oath, and oaths in this world are very binding, so words have a lot of power. If you swear, the more powerful you are, or the more powerful the other party is, then the more binding the oath is. So for instance, if I was like, I swear on my soul that I will not say a word about whatever, and then I break my oath, then I can literally seize up and go into some type of convulsion, or be unresponsive, so it can lead to death, extreme pain, etc. So they make that oath, which has Yaren give him the benefit of the doubt, so to speak, and then they end up fighting together, more so Yaren fighting and Lyndon just surviving. He has this one antagonist that he ends up overcoming towards the end of the book, and then there's a second one that he helps out with as well. But Yaren has to get her master's remnant. Remnants are another important part of the story, where remnants are kind of like the souls of individuals who pass on. So instead of your soul, like in the conventional sense as we would expect, instead of your spirit or soul just passing on, then you have a remnant, which is, if you die, then a manifestation of yourself or of your ego or something like that, because they don't necessarily look like you. But for instance, her master was a sage, and his remnant was this like big blocky figure with a bunch of sword arms, if you will. But they can be intelligent, specifically if the sacred artist, as they're called, is more powerful, and they can think based off of their level of power as well. So they can strategize, do all this other stuff. Some of them can speak, some of them have memories, but in a sense they're kind of shadows of themselves. Either way, this remnant is more powerful than Yaren is at the time, and Lyndon's able to help her capture the remnant. So after she captures the remnant, then they're actually able to escape Sacred Valley and get out into the regular world, which brings us to Soulsmith. So that's the first book in general. And again, the book is kind of slow. It's a lot of setting up, not too much world building. There's world building in the sense of, this is what Sacred Valley is, and these are the dynamics here, these are the politics of this place, and this is how, I guess I would say, how shisty these people are, because they're very, very they're very untoward with the way that they treat one another, with the way that they treat outsiders, with the way that they treat Lyndon. And there's a lot of good writing, a lot of good character writing, but in my opinion, specifically as I look at the series as a whole, then this book pales in comparison to the rest of the books that come out in the series. So I would say keep that in mind if you're thinking about reading this book. As a matter of fact, I have a cousin who I've got to read this book. As a matter of fact, my brother actually got me to read this. I had just finished the Echo saga, and I was high off of Asher and Anara and Gideon Thorn and all the dragons or whatever. And maybe I'll talk about that sometime if this gets any type of steam. But I was high off of that, and I was talking about how great of a series it was, and my brother's like, have you heard of Cradle? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And he's like, you have to read Cradle. It is so much better. It's a great, like, the Echo Saga is great, but he's like, Cradle is absolutely amazing. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he keeps on talking to me about it, and I actually end up picking up the series, and I guess I trust my brother. He reads more than I do. And I listened, and I bought all 11 books at once, and yeah, I went through them all in less than a month and then reread them. So again, that is Unsold, Cradle Part 1, and I will talk about Soulsmith, Black Flame, and the rest of them periodically as time goes on, I suppose. But I would highly recommend this book. It is, as I mentioned, kind of Dragon Ball Z-esque. So this would be like, I don't even know if I would call this like the Radix saga or whatever that saga was called, but this would be like the equivalent of like the Radix saga, where Goku is just weak. Or as a matter of fact, I would go even back to Dragon Ball, where Goku's like a teenager, so to speak, and this is right before he starts to fight Piccolo, or something like that, where he hasn't really realized his potential. I mean, Goku, everybody understands he was a Saiyan. He was always stronger than other humans, so it's not a direct comparison, but just the level of progression and leveling up is very similar to Dragon Ball. The fight scenes are absolutely amazing. I will give Will Wight credit that, and it'd be derelict on my part if I didn't mention that the action sequences in this book are absolutely amazing. They're creative. They're very, very descriptive. As far as romance is concerned, there's a little bit of romance in the series, but by no means are you getting any type of explicit scenes or anything like that. That's really not the focus, and it doesn't take away from it at all. That's not the tone of the book, so he does a very good job of capturing and in keeping with the certain tone that the book series has. But it's wonderful. So I'll talk more about it, and yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to me pontificate for the last 20 some odd minutes or so. So if you enjoyed it, then I guess I'll do more. If you didn't, then well, but first time, so let me put this out and see how it goes. Talk to you later.